Hey everyone, I hope you're well. This is the story about what if Naruto was Fairy Queen's apprentice. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. I have created a playlist of this what if and other what ifs, make sure to check them as well. So without any further ado, let's start the what if. You aren't going to say a word to me, are you? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow as he looked at the Anbu agent with a dull tone. She was obviously a female given her slim body shape, and the more feminine Anbu armor. She did wear a cat mask over her face, hence the Anbu alias of Nico aka Cat. He had started the mission today, and the two of them had been running in complete silence since the mission had began. The Nadeshiko village they were going to was a few days away, so they would be having to travel together for a while. It felt awkward when she was saying 0 words to him. Just like that. All she did was look at him, before she turned her head away from him with that same awkward silence about her. He wasn't sure what to make of her, or if this was how the Anbu did things. Staying silent all the time sounded rather boring to him. Naruto twitched in annoyance as he glared at the Nico mask-wearing agent of Anbu, not liking the silence anymore when he had asked her a direct question. Urza was in a state of sleep at the moment inside of him, having spent some time inside of him so that she wasn't bored for the long trip. Another thing pissing him off at the moment. Nico's only physical trait, her long purple hair, flowed behind her in the wind as they ran. Naruto twitched and looked at his own slowly growing out hair. He mentally weighed the pros and cons of growing his hair out. So far, only the stronger people around could manage having long hair, so he would do best to wait and grow it out when he got strong enough so that it wasn't a weakness for him. Nico looked over at him for a second, before her head tilted down as she looked at the tattoo of the strange blue mark on his arm. The mark that reminded her a little of a fairy, with a tail on it. For the last few hours she had been wondering about that mark, since it gave off a slight aura of its own. She wasn't sure if it was some kind of highly advanced fuinjutsu or something similar. It made her question where the young Jinchuriki got it. Of course, she held nothing against the boy for his stigma. She more than understood that he was Naruto Uzumaki, and not the dreaded fox beast sealed within him. She was privy to secrets about the boy that all Anbu were informed of in order to keep him safe. There wasn't a single Anbu, besides the new ones that joined after Naruto's 5th birthday, that were unaware of his heritage. Most, if not all, of the guards had watched over Naruto at some point. When she had been training under Kakashi when he was in Anbu, Kakashi had asked her to watch over Naruto for him should anything ever happen to him and he be unable. She hadn't been aware at that moment, but later when she had been informed of why Naruto needed Anbu tailing him she understood. Naruto's father had been Kakashi's teacher, making the man sort of like a brother to Naruto, a horribly irresponsible brother that was horrible at his job, but a brother all the same. That being said, she had no idea how to talk to the cross-dressing boy. She was nervous that she would let slip something that was being kept from the boy. It was awkward for her knowing of the boy's parents, and not being able to tell the lonely boy about his own heritage. The boy looked more like Kushina every day, though he had the 4th Hokage's skin and left eye. She had zero idea where that strange brown right eye came from, since he didn't have a parent with brown eyes. Kushina had plum-colored eyes, and Minato had bright blue eyes. Neither of those colors came close to brown. Seriously, say something. Naruto shouted at her, getting her attention again as she saw the pissed-off look on his face. Naruto didn't know it, but when he was pissed off his cheeks puffed up a little. Tomato? Kat said the first word that came to her mind when she saw those puffed-out cheeks with his round face and bright red hair. She realized what she had done moments later, and moments later when she realized the mistake that she had made. Naruto had already pounced at her with his arms and legs spread out, his hands in a clawing motion. His hair flowing behind him wildly, splitting into tails that floated behind him, his face darkened by shadows and his eyes white glowing orbs. She didn't know what hit her when she was tackled to the ground, and when he sank his teeth into the top of her head she paused for a moment. She had never been bitten by a person before. It hurt, like a lot. She grabbed Naruto by the waist and tried to silently pull him off of her as quickly as possible, since she could feel him grabbing the sides of her head as well, and his legs already wrapped around her chest. She was surprised by the immense physical strength the boy that was so close to 13 had. She tried ripping him off, but he stayed firm on her. Jrrr! Naruto growled as he sank his teeth deeper into her head, and she continued to try and yank him off of her. She had dropped a bomb granting him more than normal strength so that he could stay on her and exact his revenge for calling him a tomato. He fucking hated tomatoes more than anything. Funny enough, Sasuke loved tomatoes, his rival liked the food he hated the most. Being called a tomato pissed him off more than anything. He fucking knew he had a round face, and he knew that his hair was colored the same shade of scarlet red as a ripe tomato. He freaking knew that he looked like a tomato when he blushed or looked angry, but having it actually be said by somebody pissed him off even more than anything else. He could stand jokes or insults based on his style of dress or style, that was okay, but call him a tomato and something inside of him snaps. It isn't even completely his own rage, because he can feel something inside of him that is getting angry as well, and he doesn't mean Urza. She thinks the nickname is cute, since it isn't directed at her for once. Apparently she suffered the same tomato nickname when she was younger from her rival. Turns out, she had a rounded face when she was younger as well, and it also looked rounder when she was pissed off. It was still a little rounded, got angry, but when she was already angry nobody was dumb enough to piss her off further by making a tomato comment. Kat finally ripped Naruto from her, and her head splurted blood a few times before it stopped. Naruto tried to clawing and reaching for her, while kicking his legs out. The bad thing about being short was that he wasn't able to reach her now that she was holding him at an arm's length, with her arms being longer than his legs and arms. Naruto's armor glowed gold, before it vanished and he was naked for a split second with a wisp of gold covering his crotch, and then the glow came back and covered him for a second. When it stopped, Kat froze when she saw Naruto dressed in a blue, sexy, cat costume. "Please, let me go, meow." Naruto told her with his cheeks still puffed out, and she let him go before she could think of anything else, her mind frozen and only following commands from shock. She regretted being in a shocked state when Naruto jumped at her again and sank his longer than average canines into her mask this time, and used both his arms and legs to hang on to her. His armor vanished, leaving him naked before he changed back into his normal armor again now that he had used the surprise factor to his advantage once more. At least he wasn't biting her head, but the cracks in her mask were concerning. She punched him in the ribs, only to let out a gasp of surprise when she more than likely bruised her knuckle on the strong metal he was wearing. Pieces of her mask cracked and flew off of her cat face mask, exposing a bit more of her face. She rushed towards a tree and slammed Naruto against it to try and free herself without having to resort to more drastic means of escape, only for his armor to cover his back for him. She silently crossed her fingers, and a clone of herself appeared next to and started to grab Naruto and try and pull him off of her. Not seeing it helping anything, she summoned another shadow clone to pull the boy off of her. Her mask completely broke, revealing her pretty face and bright brown eyes, before Naruto chomped down on her forehead. "Ouch! Get him OFF!" Kat shouted over to her shadow clones, only for Naruto's legs to glow as he got rid of his boots and replaced them with swords that he was holding with his feet. He let go of Kat with them, and thrust his legs backwards and stabbed at both clones, but they blocked the swords with the swords they drew from their backs. Naruto blinked, before he calmed down and let go of Kat and fell to the ground, his swords being replaced with boots again. "You use swords too?" Naruto asked with a curious tone, and Kat hissed as she touched her bleeding forehead. "My mask is off, so you might as well call me by name. Yugao Yuzuki, and yes, I am a Kenjutsu specialist," Yugao said as she got out some bandages and started to wrap them around her bleeding forehead. She made a very strict mental note to never call Naruto a tomato again, at least not to his face like that. "Well, this is awkward again, don't call me a tomato again," Naruto said with narrowed eyes, and a light red aura about him, not an aura of chakra, but an aura of red magic. Yugao froze for a second and started to sweat a little at the very intimidating aura that the boy had. She hated to admit it, but she was pretty frightened of a boy Naruto's age for a few seconds. She hadn't felt something like this since she had first met Itachi and seen that boy kill somebody. She was going to avoid pissing Naruto off in the future. I won't call you a tomato again," Yugao said, before she forced her face to return to a neutral expression. She did sweat a little when Naruto's smiling face returned, and she noticed that the sun was going down very quickly. It would be best if they set up camp down and rested while they had the chance. The Nadeshiko village was only a few days away, and it would be best to hurry, but not at a pace that would wear them out by the time they got there. They were expected to be there after 6 days, and if they went at their current pace then they would make it in 2 days with 4 to spare. "I think we should make camp now, how about you?" Naruto asked as he looked at the sun falling down below the horizon. "Yes, but before we do so I would like to go over some rules that you will need to remember for your stay at the Nadeshiko village," Yugao said in a serious tone, with him blinking and looking at her. "Rules?" Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. "Yes, rules. The first and most important of which, if anyone challenges you to a fight, refuse it. In the Nadeshiko village, if you defeat one of their kunoichi in a fight, they had the right to keep you in their village as their husband. If you lose, they will kill you. The second rule is try not to cause any trouble," Yugao said with a stern look, remembering all the trouble he caused for his own village with his pranks. Naruto didn't even look sheepish from her words, only grinning with pride at his pranking skills. "Yeah, and my name is Kushina Uzumaki from the Uzumaki clan," Naruto mocked lightly, getting Yugao to freeze completely when she heard him bring up that name. "Where did you hear that name?" Yugao asked with narrowed eyes, having something that would be very worth reporting back to the Hokage when the mission was finished. "Ha! Oh, somebody said I looked like her when I was passing by. I mean, wasn't the first Hokage's wife named Mito Uzumaki or something like that? The old man told me it was a common name," Naruto said with a wave of his hand, not knowing that Yugao breathed a sigh of relief that Naruto was ignorant enough to think that he wasn't related to them. "Hey Naruto, you will never guess who I found inside of your soul, besides the giant fox thing," Urza said as she popped out of Naruto and floated next to him. Naruto blinked and looked at her for a second, not knowing what to say at the moment. He did have a pretty good question though. Who the hell was in his soul? "I am sure that you and Lady Kushina share some common blood, though it may be distant," Yugao lied to Naruto, while Urza crossed her arms under her chest and raised an eyebrow. "Don't believe her, Naruto. You have a deeper connection to this Kushina woman that you know of. Tonight, meet me inside of your soul and I can tell you the truth, and introduce you to somebody you will be happy to meet," Urza said as she slowly started to let herself get sucked back into Naruto, who frowned visibly and looked at Yugao as she placed a backup mask on her face. Naruto summoned his flame blade and stuck it into the ground and started a fire using the sword as the base. He let B's sword stay there, and charged it up with enough magic to last until they could get enough wood to get it lasting longer. What was his connection to Kushina Uzumaki? Why does my mind look different? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow as he looked at how girly his inner soul had become since fusing with Urza. Well, girly wasn't the true thing he would like to call it, but his mindscape had been changed into that of a room. It was a large room that was filled to the brim with various different kinds of armors and trophies lining the walls, with 5 other rooms sitting right next to it. There were stuffed animals on the bed, and other such things laying around on the floor for the purpose of entertainment. I changed things. The boiler room, sewer thing wasn't working for me, so I changed it to this. Underneath the bed is a hidden door that leads to the Kyuubi's prison. I live inside of you, you know, Urza said as she walked around and sat down on the bed. She was closely linked to his soul, thus making his mindscape her own person playground to change as she saw fit. She lived here, so she had at least that much of a right. She wasn't some animal that needed to be caged, like the Kyuubi, but instead a beautiful young woman of 20 that deserved to get at least some preferential treatment from her host. You changed my mindscape, and made it this? Naruto asked as he gestured to the stuffed animals and the frilly bed. Well, at least it sort of explained why some parts of his personality had become a bit more Urza, because she was in his mind changing some things around like this. Of course, not even she could change the more important parts of his core self, but she didn't need to. She just changed enough to allow herself some form of comfort inside of her student. It is a replica of my room at the dorms of Fairytail. I feel nice here, and unlike on the outside, I have legs in here. I can't just float around. Urza said as she gestured to her legs, showing that they were back with her once more. She really did have sexy legs, and Urza saw Naruto staring at her thighs. She crossed her legs over each other, before she coughed into her hand and looked towards one of the other rooms. Of course, there is somebody that I met when I was exploring. Urza said with a significant look towards one of the armors. Who? Naruto asked as he turned around and looked at what she was looking at, seeing a pair of legs sticking out from one of the armors, with the side of her hair doing down to the knees. The skin was pale, the same shape as Urza's own skin, and the hair was a less vibrant shade of red. A more dull shade of red than Naruto or Urza's own red hair, which had a more life to it, even though Urza was dead. Funny thing, the death itself didn't change her vibrant red hair. The legs stiffened lightly, and a patch of red hair came out from behind the armor and turned around to show a heart-shaped face with plum-colored eyes. A beautiful female in her late 20s maybe, but with the look of youth to her. She walked out from behind the armor with a sheepish look on her face, and Naruto blinked for a moment. Oh, why is Kushina Uzumaki inside of me? Naruto asked when he saw one of Tenten's top favorite kunoichi in history. She looked just like the picture of her that he had seen, though her figure had a little bit of extra weight to it, not a lot, but enough to show that she had been pregnant at some point in time. She wasn't very well endowed when compared to Urza, but not many were, and she was on the normal size for females in height. She wore a home-styled dress with a yellow shirt underneath it, and her straight red hair called out to Naruto for a second. You know me already? Kushina asked, in slight confusion. Yeah, I mean, you are one of Tenten's favorite ninja that she looks up to. Though, I don't get why you would be inside of me. Urza-sensei is part of me now, but why are you here? Naruto asked with a very confused look on his face, and Kushina's face twitched before she grit her teeth and showed a vein on the side of her head bulging out. Raising her gripped fist, she slammed it onto the top of Naruto's head and sent his face pointing towards the floor. Is my son really that dense databane? Kushina shouted out in a rage, and Naruto's eyes widened as he looked at her when righting himself. Son? Naruto asked for a second as his blue and brown eyes widened, before he leaned his head down and he started to shake a little. Urza smiled at the fact that Naruto looked like he was going to be so happy to be reunited with his mother, so happy he was going to cry tears of joy. Kushina started to walk towards Naruto with open arms, before both Urza and Kushina were shocked when Naruto jerked forward and wrapped his arms around her while shaking. Naruto! Kushina whispered as she felt his sniffles as he repressed the tears that wanted to leak out of his eyes. There isn't anything, huh? Urza started, before Naruto lifted Kushina up into the air and bent his back into a German suplex and slammed Kushina's face right into the floor. Urza looked and saw a look of rage on Naruto's face as he stood back up, with Kushina rolling onto her back and sitting up. She rubbed her face in pain, while Urza looked shocked that Naruto just gave his own mother a German suplex. She had expected tears, not some kind of strange, violent reaction. I blame you. Naruto whispered as he looked at Kushina with some anger. I'm sorry, but I told Minato not to seal the Kyuubi inside of you. Kushina told him, thinking that he was angry at her for the cause of his life's troubles. Don't talk. Because of you I was born with a round face, and a slightly feminine body. Now that I see you have red hair, I know why people call me a tomato. I hate tomatoes, and now I find out my sensei and mother are the reason why I have red hair and a round face. Now I am part of a trio of tomatoes. Naruto shouted as he walked around and grabbed his scarlet red hair in frustration, with both red-headed women looked at him in confusion. It was impossible to tell what had just happened, but they were pretty sure that he was angry about having a round face and being called a tomato. You are getting a curvy feminine body that makes you look like a sexy girl from this girl, and you are mad at me for giving you a round face? Kushina asked in a dumb tone, not understanding what was happening. She froze when a dark aura appeared around Naruto for a bit, and his hair started to raise up and make 9 tails of hair, short tails, but still freaked her out. Her son had inherited her temper, now that was just great, and it was being used on her. Now, she knew what Minato felt like. Have you seen yourself? Urza-sensei isn't the only reason for my lean, feminine build, she is just why I am becoming even more feminine than I would have. Have you not seen how I dress? If I cared about being feminine, then I wouldn't wear Urza-sensei's clothes all the time. Naruto said as he showed the skirt that he was wearing, pointing out that he had no problem with himself being feminine. What? Kushina asked, for the very first time noticing that her son was wearing girl's clothes, and armored top, but the breasts on the armored top made for feminine-looking armor. This was the first time she was actually seeing her son, so she had been in a surprised state that didn't allow her to see what he had been wearing, just his beautiful face, in a neutral loving way. Of course, she would view her own child as beautiful, most mothers did view their babies as beautiful. Naruto looked so much like her, but with different eyes, more vibrant hair, and a tan, and most likely a penis. Say you are sorry for giving me my round face. Naruto ordered with his arms crossed, and she jumped up and saluted him. Sorry for giving you a round face, Kushina started, before Naruto rushed forward and hugged her this time for real. Her face softened, as did Urza's, as they saw and felt the actual loving hug this time. Damn it, damn. Why can't I stay mad at you? Naruto asked in frustration, showing that he hadn't really been mad about her giving him her face. Kushina smiled and wrapped her arms around him gently, knowing that he had been looking for something to be mad about. He was just so confused at the moment that he wanted to be angry and sort things out that way. It made sense, since she had never been there before in his life to raise him. Instead, the spot of mother had been taken up by the other slightly round-faced redhead in the same room as them. Kushina sent a glance at Urza, who wiped her tears at the beautiful scene in front of her. How old are you, Naruto? Kushina asked lovingly, and he stepped away from her and rubbed his eyes with his metal gauntlets. 12, though I turn 13 very soon. Naruto said as he started to calm himself down, getting some form of control over himself. He became a chunin a little ways back. Your son is a very good ninja, though he is lacking in his skill in weaving ninjutsu and genjutsu. You should be very proud of him. Urza told Kushina, while Naruto blushed at his faults and looked away. Kushina placed her hand on her head and grinned sheepishly. Sorry. I was never really good at ninjutsu or genjutsu either, or studying, graduated last of my class by using the shadow clone jutsu to substitute for the clone jutsu. It seems I passed that down to you, Naruto. Kushina said, not knowing that Naruto had passed a very similar way. Naruto's eyes widened at having gained something not so great from his mother. Kushina smiled at Naruto when he seemed to smile a little, and she was about to start something before Naruto interrupted her. Don't worry about it, Dadabayo. Naruto said as he looked away from her, and Kushina blushed a little in embarrassment at the other thing that she seemed to have passed down to him. She had been hoping that of the 3 things she would have passed down to him, that he wouldn't have gotten her tick, yet her got all 3 things. Her round face, red hair, and her verbal tick. The 3 physical traits she had been hoping that he wouldn't have gotten. Dadabayo, you two are just alike. Urza said as the wall started to morph as she looked at it, and a picture frame started to appear on the wall. In the picture was a portrait of the 3 of them side by side, standing in normal positions with smiles on their faces, smaller ones in the cases of adults, and a big grin on Naruto's face. Kushina had her hands on the shoulders of the 2 red-headed younger people, technically younger. Urza died when she was around 20, so, she had never aged a day mentally or physically, so her death age was in the thousands, but her age itself was around 20. Kushina had more life experience, so she got the middle spot as RH eldest. I like it, 3 tomatoes. Kushina said, getting ticks from all 3 of them, even herself. All of them looked at her, and she glared at her reflection in the mirror for calling them all tomatoes. Twitching, Naruto sighed, before he grinned and started to laugh. His mother was weird. Great, now I have a voice in my head. Naruto thought as he walked with Yugao towards the hot springs inn that they would be using to wash away the fatigue of a long few days' travel. It wasn't an overnight mission, sure, but Naruto wished that she had his stamina so that they could have just run the entire way there. Though, staying the night at an inn would be a first time for him on a missions, so it was all a new experience. At the moment, they were talking around a town for the actual inn itself. Hey, I thought I was going to vanish as well. Until you try and take the Kyuubi's chakra, I am sticking around. Kushina's voice rang out through his head, and he internally groaned. It was bad enough that he had one quick-tempered red head, like he should be talking, inside of his body, now he had two quick-tempered red heads inside of him. He was happy that his mother would stick around, but she had nothing to teach him at the moment, strange, because of all of the rumors about her that he had heard. The first thing she told him was that despite rumors she was no swordswoman. She used a kunai at most as a blade, and couldn't use anything else worth crap. So in the swords department he already had her beat with his basic swings that he worked on. She cut through her enemies like a sword through butter, but she never actually used a sword. That was just some rumor that who knows who started, and she was dead so she couldn't argue against it. Naruto's family, the Uzumaki, weren't even known for their swordsmanship. They had no family style that he could learn, and those that did use swords just used them because back in those days it was easier to use a sword to defend against a sword user than a kunai. They knew the basic swings, and that was it. The second thing, she was no ninjutsu goddess that people made her out to be. Apparently she used 7. Maybe 8 different ninjutsu of her elements tops, and a few fire ninjutsu that were ranked at D and C, so basic that almost any jonin could learn them in seconds after reading a scroll on it. Kushina sucked at using most ninjutsu, and it was only in her 2 natural affinities, wind with a secondary water affinity, that she could use up to the rank of B-rank ninjutsu. It wasn't something she was proud of, but while she had mastered those ninjutsu that she knew, she wasn't very talented in the art overall. It was just something that people confused her fui ninjutsu style as. They thought that she used pure ninjutsu when she mixed fuinjutsu into ninjutsu to make her own style. The third thing, she was a genius at fuinjutsu, and she didn't know where the rumor came from that Jiraiya had taught Minato fuinjutsu, but it was her that had taught Minato how to use the sealing arts that her family the Uzumaki were geniuses at, herself included. She was better than her own husband at the art, but since he used it more than she did he was more well known for using it than her. It was bullshit, but she didn't really mind that she didn't get the recognition that she deserved for her talents in the arts. The fourth thing, while her chakra was special and she could form chains out of it, she had told Naruto that it wasn't something that she could teach him. It wasn't even a bloodline, just a rare form of powerful chakra that very few Uzumaki were born with. Once every few generations was an Uzumaki born with this form of chakra. It wasn't a hereditary thing, so it passing down from her to him was very unlikely, almost impossible considering her own chakra had been tainted by Minato's and the Kyuubi's during Naruto's, changing the way his chakra was and promising that he most likely would never gain the ability to form chains out of chakra like herself, or use her barrier fuinjutsu style that went with it. She wished she could teach him, but it wasn't meant to be. Naruto's own elemental affinity was a mystery at the moment, so until then she didn't know if she could even teach him about her affinity. She was ashamed that she had nothing that she could teach him, other than coaching him on taijutsu and breaking out of genjutsu, but he would need a living sparring partner before he could really learn about either of those things. Basically, there was nothing that she could do to help him other than things like motherly advice, or maybe womanly advice. Please don't talk to me when I'm not asleep, this is so awkward for me. Naruto thought with a blush on his face, afraid to even go to the bathroom with his mother watching him like this. It was different with Urza, since his body was a combination of both of their bodies, and he had grown used to sharing it with her. She could also close her eyes and look away, but Kushina saw everything that he saw even if she closed her eyes. The only way that she didn't see was when she was asleep, and she couldn't sleep all the time. He hated having to say this to her, but she wasn't Urza, she just appeared in his life. For some reason, He got embarrassed at the thought of her seeing him naked, even though he took baths with Urza in her ghost form there. It was strange that out of the two redheads, it was Kushina that he felt awkward around, even though she was his birth mother. You take care of any things you want to pick up in town. I will find the inn on my own and get a room. Yugao told him, with her cat mask back on as she vanished in a blur of leaves. What a great partner. Yeah, you go find the inn without a way to signal me and tell me where it is. Naruto said as he noticed the flaw in what was being said and done. Naruto placed his metal-covered hands in his skirt pockets and frowned as he started to walk down the street and look at the different shops. Go into that one, I want to see what they have. Urza pointed out as she appeared next to him, with her legs turning back into a ghostly tail that led into his body. Naruto looked to where she was pointing, before seeing that she was pointing to a women's clothing store. Shrugging, he walked over towards it and pushed open the door, walking in like nothing was wrong with a boy walking into a women's clothing store. He was immediately assaulted by the smell of perfume the second he walked in, and the sight of many different bright colors. Tough girl or not, Urza was still a girl and liked to look at cute cloths just like any girl. Naruto liking it was another story. Though, he was a crossdresser thanks to his sensei. Hello miss, what can I do for a pretty young thing like you? The store clerk asked as she, a young woman in her late teens with bright yellow hair and gray eyes, walked up to Naruto with a smile on her face. Just looking around. Naruto said, not even bothering to comment about the way he was referred to as a girl. That, and it would be easier on the clerk's mind if she just didn't know about him being a guy. If she had been a boy calling Naruto a girl, he would have been a little angry, but him being angry when he willingly walked into a female clothing store, yeah, he was not going to admit to being a male inside of this kind of store. Is there anything that you are looking for? The clerk asked in a more insisting fashion, showing that she wanted to help Naruto find something. Just looking for something nice, but not too expensive. I was thinking of getting a matching set of something. Naruto said, thinking about getting something that he could gift to Tenten when he got back. He might as well get her something to say sorry for not seeing her off on her own mission that she had been assigned the day that he went off on his mission. How adorable, you are shopping for matching clothes for your boyfriend. The clerk gushed at the young love, and Naruto blinked, while Urza gave a shrug. She was wrong in the fact that Naruto was shopping for a boy, but she wasn't wrong that Tenten acted like a boyfriend even though she and Naruto weren't dating at the moment. Yeah, my boyfriend Tenten. He needs a new shirt, his last one ripped. Naruto said, covering up his own chuckles with a cough. He had ripped up Tenten's shirt in their last date, sparring match, thing. He hadn't thought about that, but it would make sense that he would be the one to pay for getting her a new one. You are such a cute little girlfriend. The clerk said, and Naruto read her name tag, which stated that her name was Enko Hashimimi. Naruto's sweat dropped that he was being unknowingly picked on by a girl named Enko. It was freaky frankly, but Enko was actually a pretty common name now that he thought about it. It wasn't like he was the only person named Naruto, or that Sasuke was the only person named Sasuke. Tons of people shared names, it was only when first and last name matched that things were weird. You are really going to let her call you a girl? Kushina asked from inside of his mind. Why not? It isn't like she is hitting on me or touching me. Anyway, she isn't the first and won't be the last one to call me a girl. Naruto thought back at her with a sweat drop, not truly caring at this moment. Anything special to help lower the selection? Enko asked, and Naruto looked at her for a second, before he shrugged. Just something sturdy. Naruto told her, knowing that Tenten went for clothes that could last instead of cloths suited purely for fashion. She wants something that she could wear in the middle of combat, but still make look good without her outfit being a big cause of attention. The clerk frowned at the vague request as she started to go around the shop, in the second with matching outfit designs, while Naruto was directed by Urza towards the swimsuit section so that she could look at this time's swimsuits. I see, so the bikini is still in style. Urza whispered with a glint in her eye as she looked over the different bikinis that were on sale. Naruto's armor glowed bright gold, and the top of his armor changed into the V-neck white shirt that he had decided to wear under his under today. It was a cloth store, not an armor store. Funny enough that next door to the clothing store was an armor store as well. Yeah, it is really popular with girls. Naruto muttered as he himself looked at some long spandex gloves, colored in orange. The gloves came to the middle of his forearms, and each of them was outlines at the top with a row of wind designs on them. Naruto took out, stored away, the gloves he was wearing at the moment, leaving the skin on his arm exposed as he slipped on one of the tight gloves. He flexed his fingers inside of it, seeing how it felt, before he sighed and took it off before placing it back. It just didn't fit right, a bit too tight. Unlike Urza's old armor that changed to fit his personal sizes, these were non-magic clothing that didn't change with him. If it was too tight now, it would be too tight when he bought it. Yeah, non-magic clothes are the best. I prefer that my clothes fix themselves to my shape. Though when going on a diet, it isn't exactly the best way to judge if you are getting fat or not that I had to worry about that. Urza told him when she noticed his problem. She had the very same problem when had first started using her magic, and had been buying non-magic clothes instead of magical clothes. Now, she knew better, and Naruto frowned. I want something orange, just something. Naruto said with a frown as he looked around for something with his favorite color on it. Orange? Urza asked with a confused glance at him, while Naruto nodded and picked up an orange choker. It had black spikes coming out of it, but it was far too wide to go around his neck. Naruto blinked, before he realized that it was a belt, not a choker, and wrapped it around his waist. Urza looked at him with a critical eye, before she shook her head. That clashes with the blue skirt. If it were a darker blue then maybe. Urza stated, before she noticed somebody behind Naruto. Sniff! Ah! Naruto shouted in shock when he felt somebody sniff him, and he jumped and turned around and saw a woman behind him. She had wavy orange hair with skin tanner his own, and her cheekbones were prominent on her face. She wore a white dress with thigh-high white heels, but on her forehead was a white headband with a flower on it for the symbol. She had onyx eyes, and her body was rather uncurvy. She was a bit on the heavier side for a woman when compared to Urza, but she wasn't fat either. She was about average on the scale, but she had a super creepy aura about her. What an excellent perfume you have, my dear, with a delicate spice of youth, and the bitter emotions of lost childhood, yet, I smell such a sweet scent of innocence, such a unique and beautiful perfume you have, and oh my, the very light undertone of musk. What is my honey doing in such a low-brow shop such as this? The woman declared as she got down on one knee and held on of Naruto's hands in her own. She laid a kiss on Naruto's hand, and he shivered in disgust for a second, despite her being a woman. Urza looked at the woman, who appeared to be in her early 30s, though looks could be wrong. She was actually shorter than Naruto himself, and he knew he was short. Oh God, no. No, there is no way he could have found somebody that would accept his ways. And for a heir to look so much like him, no way. Urza said with a fearful whisper as she looked at the rather homely woman, a pale look of horror on her face. Her sentiments weren't shared by Naruto, because he didn't know who she was talking about. Ah! Naruto questioned loudly, not sure what was going on. The woman let go of Naruto and jumped up with her hands in a romantic position. Oh dearest me, I have forgotten my politeness. My honey, I am Sonya Kotobuki, and I am simply fascinated by such an amazing perfume you wear. Sonya said with a wide smile on her face, her white teeth actually glinting as the light hit them. Naruto shivered and backed away a little, his back hitting the wall in seconds as she got closer to him. Sonya moved towards him as he backed away, and Naruto summoned a sword and held it in front of him. Stay away, I don't want what you are selling. I don't even wear perfume. Naruto shouted, and she moved under the sword and smiled at him. Of course, not my honey, your perfume is one that nature intended you to have. No store-bought, or homemade, perfume can match yo, she started, before Naruto had a mini freak out and kicked the woman in the face, sending her flying out of his eyesight and into one of the changing rooms. Naruto was breathing heavily with a pale expression on his face, before he noticed a bruised and smiling Sonya coming out of the changing room. "My honey, such a powerful kick you have. Even the perfume of your desperation is such a beautiful fragrance," she said, before she was grabbed by the ear by Anko and dragged away. "I hired a ninja to handle unloading my inventory while Shizu was out sick today. Don't think you can harass my customers and get full pay. Now get back to your job," Anko shouted as she physically shoved Sonya into the back room so that she could get back to work, before she locked the door behind her with a frustrated look. She huffed, before turning to Naruto with a sorry look on her face. "I am sorry about her. I hired the Nadeshiko village to help me out, but they sent her. This place has been dead all day because she keeps sniffing people. I haven't seen her act like that though," Anko said with a sigh of frustration. "Keep her away from me," Naruto said with a light whisper, and she nodded. "At least you didn't run out screaming. I would give you a discount, but business is down and I can't afford it," Anko said with a sorry expression on her face, and Naruto nodded and actually got back to looking for something. Naruto was about to look to Urza, only to see her eyes sparkling when she was looking at a matching set of clothes. One was a purple kimono with the sleeves covered at the ends with red flowers, with a black obi at the waist, and a red yukata to go underneath it, on the back of which was hauled a heart design. The other was a purple martial arts gi with black cuffs at the shins and forearms and a black tie around the middle of it. Underneath was also a red training shirt. On the back of the gi was the other side of the heart. "I'll take those please," Naruto said as he gestured to the matched set, and she nodded and grabbed one of them, the kimono, before she started to lead him towards the changing room. She pulled him into the changing room, before handing him the female half of the set, not that she could be blamed. "Here you go miss, please try that on so that I can get your proper size. It will only take a moment. Do you have a guess about how big your boyfriend is compared to you? This Tenten is a lucky guy for having such a caring girlfriend," Anko said with a happy smile, while Naruto thought about it. "A good deal taller than me, maybe a few good inches, and then some," Naruto guessed, and she nodded and got out a tape measuring string. "Oh god, she really thinks you're a girl." Kushina's voice rang out in his mind, and Naruto twitched, remembering that his mother was inside of him and about to see him change the normal way. Naruto shrugged, before he grabbed the bottom of his shirt and took it off, with Anko gasping in surprise when she saw that Naruto wasn't wearing a bra, or even a training bra. Naruto twitched when she immediately circled the measure around his chest with it pressing tightly against him. She moved her eyes over the measure, before she moved the measure and tightened it at his ribs, before again at his waist. I guess you really don't need a bra. You're only an A-cup. We actually don't see AA or A-cups anymore after a civilian tried to sue us," Anko said as she thought about it for a second, and Naruto huffed and placed his hands on his chest. They were soft sure, but they weren't boobs. Sure, he lacked muscle definition in them, but he blamed that on Urza since this was partly her body as well, so the changes that had happened had included the softness of his chest. He couldn't help it, but it wasn't like he would need a bra. "PFFFFFFT, this is funny." Urza laughed a little at him, and he ignored her with a blush on his face as he dropped his skirt and stepped out of it. Naruto opened up the yukata top, before moving his arms through the sleeves and closing it, before putting the kimono top over it and wrapping the obi around his waist, the sleeves of the kimono going past his hands so that only the tips of his fingers could be seen. Anko gave him a light look, before she nodded a little. "At least you wear panties like a good girl should, though your choice. I think a lighter color like pink of blue would fit you better than the black you have. On the other hand, the black complements your butt. You must hate shopping with your confusing body." Anko made a light joke, and Naruto sent her a dull look. He looked at himself in the mirror with a frown on his face, before he grabbed the back of his hair and moved it around a little so that his left eye was being covered by the hair. He smiled a little, before turning around and facing Anko with a smile as he started to strip. "Thanks for the advice. I think Tenten will be happy with her gift. Naruto said as he pulled hard on the fabric, but it stayed firm without ripping, showing the quality to it. He was going to give her the GI, since he knew that she wanted something that she could be taken seriously in, but they were made of the same material, so it would be a good test to test this one as well. Anko nodded and she looked over Naruto now that he was only in panties, and she smiled and the young girl got redressed in front of her. I'll just wrap these up and take them to the front then. Anko said as she picked up the clothes, and there was silence in the stall. Did she not notice your bulge? Kushina asked, wondering if that was the case, or the girl as just trained not to treat crossdresser any differently than the girls that she attended to as well. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he looked at the front of his panties, before he shrugged. There wasn't a real bulge, since he wasn't hard at the moment and the magic in the panties prevented anything from spilling out. Kushina didn't know that before now, while he himself wasn't bothered by it anymore. Magic panties, the perfect panties for traps and women to wear. It helps that you fused with me, and some things changed. Urza said with a fond smile on her face. She made sure to always buy magic bras and panties, even if she never wore the bras underneath her armor. They not only changed size, but they were great at preventing arousal and had a sticking magic to keep anything from slipping out that shouldn't slip out. I don't think she was paying attention to much, other than I am a paying customer. Naruto said as he redressed himself, and summoned back the top of his armor now that he was going to be leaving the store. Naruto left the changing room and walked up to the register, getting out his toad purse. It was a purse and he knew it. Wallets weren't shaped like small bags that opened up at the mouth like his did. Naruto took out the cash he needed to pay for the items he bought, before placing his Gamachan back into his pocket dimension and getting the clothes and bags that he had bought. Naruto hurried out of the store with a grin on his face, before he stopped just outside of the door. Yes? Anko asked when she noticed that Naruto stopped. You did know I am a boy, right? Naruto asked, and her eyebrows shot up behind her hairline as her jaw dropped and she looked over him again. She couldn't even form normal words as she stared at him, and he grinned as she looked at him with disbelieving eyes, like she didn't believe for a second that he was a boy. Naruto shrugged, before he walked away with a grin on his face, and this his stomach growled at him. Oh well, time to get something to eat before he went looking for the inn and met up with Yuga. Then he would take a nice bath, and it was off to the Nadeshiko village in the morning. Naruto shivered in excitement at finally going to go see another village that wasn't considered super weak like the waterfall village. He wondered if there was a ramen stand in the Nadeshiko village. Thanks for watching, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. I have created a playlist of this what if where you guys can find all the parts. See you in the next video.